Getting ready to make it a great race day with the perfect balance of flavor and refreshment. Just turn left and enjoy Budweiser, the great American lager. NASCAR on Fox at the newly named Auto Club of Speedway of Southern California. And there is a report of trouble with Michael Waltrip's car, that he has been depositing oil on the racetrack.
My goodness, it's hard to believe. I can see it streaming out there, Larry, like it's got an oil line off or something.
Yeah, he's going to try to get to pit road. Of course, we look like we're a few laps away from going green.
Because they're going to have to clean up what he left out on the racetrack, Larry.
You can see right there, all that is a deposit of oil, grease, or rear end grease, possibly transmission grease on the back panel underneath the rear spoiler of that 55 car.
That is serious.
And hopefully no damage to the car. Of course, these cars run a dry sump oil system with a lot of oil in it, not 5 quarts like in your passenger car. So hopefully no damage to the engine or drivetrain.
What they have now, Larry, is it a 3-gallon or a 5-gallon tank in these cars?
It's not quite 5 gallons, but close to it.
Michael will get a push to get back to his pit road stall. And let's take a look at how the race is made up today. This is a 2-mile super speedway out here in Southern California, so 500 miles will take 250 laps.
Pit road speed 55 miles per hour. The pit window where you want to come to pit road to get that Sunoco race fuel, 40 to 44 laps.
We asked NASCAR officials if, due to the lack of practice and the rain, they planned what we call a competition yellow for teams to come in and check tire wear early in the race, and they say they have not planned for one. They did not announce one at the drivers' meeting.
Yeah, well, you know, we had the Craftsman Truck Series race yesterday. No tire issues whatsoever yesterday, so I think that gives them confidence that these tires will be fine here today.
Here are our NASCAR on Fox onboard cameras for the day, 9 of them. And the best news right this moment is sunshine over the speedway. There is, however, weather off to the west. Hollywood, as you know, lies 60 miles due west of the speedway, and United Artists, one of its most venerable studios, is celebrating its 90th year, producing great filmed entertainment. Look for special anniversary editions of classic United Artists titles on DVD at your local retailer.
Now, Michael Waltrip, the 55 car, he was pushed to pit road. They've jacked the left side up trying to figure out where this oil is leaking. Now, all this is perfectly legal. The only thing they can't do right here is put Sunoco race fuel in that car. You cannot fuel the car until the green flag comes out.
You see on Michael's seat there, our nephew passed away Friday, and Jason Brinkley, and I say hi to my sister Connie and to Dave. We're thinking of you.
Speedy Dry put down to pick up the oil lost by Michael Waltrip, and the jet dryers to blow it off the speedway. When the cars were lined up, there was a great concern about dampness on pit road, and now most all of pit road has a nice gray, dry look to it, especially and most importantly the entrance to pit road, where these cars have to take all that speed off and get ready to roll.
That's the most dust I've seen all week out here from that stage.
That's right. It's been a damp weekend.
It has.
Let's take a look at our race keys for this 250 lap 500-mile race. Keep the car balanced. You heard a lot of the drivers in the pre-race talk about the cars pushing, shoving the front end, or being loose, and it's very important with the speed you're running here to keep that balance just right. Be prepared mainly to get aggressive with adjustments throughout this race as this track goes through some changes. Jeff Hammond talked about it in the pre-race. Engines here, it never fails. This race can come down to a fuel mileage race, and watch that RPM. These engines, they're going to make a lot of horsepower in this cool weather, a lot of hanging RPM.
Darrell, one thing we'll see that's different from Daytona is you don't see a lot of sustained side-by-side racing here. Drivers will pull up, they will make the pass. There's a lot of give and take, because is it the speed? Is it the lack of banking? What is it that makes the drivers not want to stay side by side on this speedway?
It's pretty much a combination of all those things, Mike. It's lack of banking, and then some cars work good around the bottom, some work good around the top. But the biggest difference in this track and Daytona is how wide this track is. You only have a few options at Daytona. Here you got a lot of options as far as where you can run.
If you have a NASCAR question anytime, anything you want to know, we've got the answers for you. It's the coolest NASCAR website ever at foxsports.com, and it's called Ask the Pros, built by the Home Depot. Just type in your question. Daryl, Larry Mack, and Jeff are there 24/7 to answer it, and you'll hear the answer. Go to foxsports.com/askthepros.
You know, as we're looking into this number 20 car, the Home Depot car with Tony Stewart, who finished third in the Daytona 500, as we've all talked about, we had an awesome week and a half of speed weeks at Daytona. But Tony Stewart put it best this week in some quotes. He said, I love getting to this speedway out here in Fontana, California, because we feel like as drivers and the teams and the crews, we're controlling more of our own destiny. I'm not worried about who's coming on the back straightaway with a half lap to go, because if my car's handling good, I can go ahead and beat those guys.
We're going to have another couple laps of caution as they put down more Speedy Dry, and we'll come along and blow it away for whatever has happened to Michael Waltrip's car. Krista?
Well, the irony, Mike, after a weekend of limited activity, it has been nothing but activity down here in the 55 pit. Absolute chaos. When Michael came in, all the guys started running around. They asked for a number 12 Wiggins clamp and some oil. They went over the wall. They're trying to find the problem. There also, Michael wanted to make sure that they cleaned up the oil underneath the car so he didn't get loose in his own oil. Meanwhile, the 99 crew, they're cleaning up their pit from the oil that Michael brought in. So they have not fixed the problem. Everyone running around down here in the 55.
Thanks, Krista. We're going to have a look at Jeff Hammond's Ford Fusion 360, and maybe Jeff can tell us what a Wiggins clamp is.
Well, the thing is right now, Mike, when you look underneath one of these cars, you can see real quick all the steel braided oil lines coming out of the oil pan. It circle around through. Here's the oil lines that go underneath the car. Steel tube all the way back to the back. You see these three return lines. Here's the oil tank that we were talking about. This is where it's located, in behind the driver. This aluminum tank right here, all these lines going inside there. Now they make a variety of clamps. Now you can see here the way this union is put together. We still use a wrench to tighten these up on the oil line itself. The steel line runs underneath the car. But some of the clamps are a new style of aircraft equipment line where you clamp it together, and that's what they're talking about. It's a different breed. Now sometimes that's a good thing, and other times it can be a negative, but right now this is probably the area they're working in, because they're definitely losing a lot of oil. Looked like Michael shut the engine down, because if you're losing oil from here, you lose this reserve tank, you're definitely going to burn the engine up, guys.
Thanks, Jeff. Good heads up work there. Let's show you what's happened to Michael Waltrip as he goes by.
Oh my gosh! I mean,
that's not a leak; it's a flood.
It obviously has an oil line off of the car. I mean, it's not like it's loose or anything else. It's come completely off.
And Daryl, I know we had very limited practice yesterday, but I'm just not sure I can blame that on the limited practice, because regardless of how much practice we had, these guys have a very extensive checklist they go through inside, underneath that car, over the entire race car.
I think one of the things that all these teams are dealing with these days, Larry, is all this new technology, new this, new that, new parts, new pieces. Sometimes those new parts and pieces are not quite proven enough. I'm not sure that's what happened there, but that's a possibility.
One good piece of news as we get ready to race here in Fontana is that the ceiling has lifted enough to allow the Goodyear blimp to get into the air and provide our aerial coverage today. For track-tested technology, get there on Goodyear Innovation. You see the field coming down the back straightaway, approaching turns 3 and 4. We do have weather off to the west, so we're anxious to get this party started.
Wonder if those are rain tires on the old blimp.
It has tires?
It did there on that picture. He was smoking them.
Here's the area of concern. Turns 3 and 4. You see the seams in the asphalt. The seams are unavoidable when you lay asphalt. You can only lay it so wide at a time. And that's where over the weekend they've had to do a lot of work to keep in the ground water from just bubbling up there and weeping out of the racetrack. And you see a little bit of it there.
There's some of it right there. It's kind of like the mamas and papas always said. It never rains in sunny California, but boys, when it does, it pours.
And we'll call Albert Hammond. He can sing that for us a little later on.
The other one is Monday. Can't trust that day, so we need to get it done today.
Okay. Matt.
Mike, Stock Car Racing had the Alabama gang. Sprint cars, the Pennsylvania posse. But out west, they call themselves the Mears gangs. The Mears gang's roots are deep in this area. Grandfather Bill moved to Bakersfield after starting his career in Kansas as an infant. Ontario Motor Speedway security guards wouldn't even let Mom Carol bring Casey to the pits unless he was in her backpack. Later that day, Casey watched Dad Roger score his first ever IndyCar Top 10 finish. 23 years later, right here in Fontana, Casey would go on to record the same feat. To carry on that Mears Gang tradition, the Mears Gears, Casey's helmet is the same paint scheme his dad wore years ago, designed by legendary Bakersfield painter Bob Beam, who grew up just 2 doors down from Roger and Rick. And that's one thing about racing and the different generations. They pass down their passion for the sport from generation to generation.
That's great. I never knew that logo was the Mears Gears.
I never did either. But
that's cool.
It's just so neat. You saw Greg Newman in victory lane with Ryan last week after he won the Daytona 500. You see Roger Mears there with Casey, whether he's running good, whether he's running bad. And Darrell, I know for years your dad, Leroy, was right there by your side, buddy, pulling for you through thick and thin.
Michael and I talk about it all the time, how Daddy would really be in what we called hog heaven if he were around right now, because of the way things with Michael's teams and the way things are in the sport today. He would really enjoy it. Dad's there's not a driver out here that the family hadn't had to sacrifice some to get them here.
See Roger Penske right here, the winning car owner from the 50th annual Daytona 500. When he's at the racetrack, which is pretty common, that's where you'll find him, up there on top of the spotter stand. The captain.
Here's the best news of the day. 2 to go and they come to the start-finish line.
Oh boy.
And we'll go racing. The field top 35 set by owners' points from last year, then winning drivers from last year, Kurt Busch, then past champions Dale Jarrett and Bill Elliott, and then the current point standings from 2008. That's how we get 43 starters for this race, and yet a group of drivers had to go home without ever setting a tire on the racetrack. So they're loaded and ready to go to Vegas. And we're ready to race.
You know, the 55 car looks like they've lowered the left side down, so they may be getting close with Michael. And I mentioned how this race can come down to fuel mileage.
Everything look good in there, Mike?